Hello, and welcome to this session of Mentoring Professionals, where we're going to be looking at Kepner Tregoe and how to use it with incident and problem management. I will hand over straight to Brendan to start the presentation.
All right. Hello, everybody. So one thing that I really like to do at the start here is that everybody gives me a message in the chat to write where you are. Where in the world are you? Give me some feedback in the chat. Let's see where people are. There we have first one in London, Libya. 2 in London, United Arab Emirates, London, USA, Drammen. Hello, Marianne. Miami, the US, South Africa, Brazil. This is cool. Several in the UK. More in the UK. Don't we have anybody from Ireland here? Come on, guys, show me some of the Irish. In Netherlands, Florida.
We've got a great spread.
Definitely, there's one from India. That's nice. Okay, so welcome to the show, guys. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen here. This is the full presentation that I'm going to go through. And you'll also have available for this presentation as a PDF at the end of my presentation. So you'll have, and I might add some notes to this along the way. I'm using Miro, which basically is like a wall. So anything that I think along the way, I might just add another post-it note and add it to the wall here along the way. And I can also do that. Any questions that you guys have, please use the chat function. Dev is going to be looking after the chat here, I think, and picking up questions along the way. So ask anything at all, and do my best. I'll answer it as best I can. If I haven't got an answer, I'll let you guys know that I haven't got an answer to it. So just at the start, so I'm Brendan and Dev is here as well. And this is a webinar based on Kepner Tregoe. And Kepner Tregoe is, it's been around quite a while. It's a method that's been since 1958, very quickly. 2 guys, one called Kepner and one called Tregoe, and they started looking at people who were good at doing problem management, and they wanted to see what are you doing if you do good problem management? How do you solve problems and decision? So Kepner Tregoe is mostly known for problem solving and teams making decisions. So this is it's not about which side of the bed I should get out of in the morning. This is basically a team together at work that has to make a decision. How can they make the best balanced decision? By gathering all the information and analyzing risks and then making a decision. The only part that we're going to look at today is something called problem analysis. So Kepner Tregoe has 4 parts to it. And we'll be looking at the problem analysis, which is why this has been sort of described as based on incident management and problem management. And it's very suitable for service desk staff. That's the staff that I use this for. It's for incident and problem teams, task forces and crisis teams, and a little bit about change management. So those are the main groups of people, and probably some project managers as well that I get on workshops based on Kepner Tregoe. And I've used this in Norway. I'm based in Norway, in Oslo, in Norway, and I've used this in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and in England, in Liverpool, because that's the world's best football team. And Tanzania, we have some people that we help in Tanzania. Beautiful people in India who work with teams in Scandinavia. So a lot of the service desks and first line, second, third line support as hand is dealt with by teams in India. So we've traveled down with teams from Scandinavia down to India to get Kepner Tregoe working. And it's like one of those things behind Kepner Tregoe that Kepner Tregoe does not solve problems, people solve problems. But this is a method to follow. I've also done this on Singapore as well, where we had a project with that we used to get out on some of the ships that we had. Here's the tips that I'm going to give to you guys today. This is basically this is like start with the end in mind. This is what you get through this presentation. This is at the end of this presentation. This is basically what you should be sitting with at the very end. So if people say, what did you get out of this presentation? This is what I hope you get out of it. Number 1, what's the problem we're trying to solve? If you are sitting with a team trying to solve a problem, my number 1 rule is always everybody take pen and paper and write down the problem that you're trying to solve individually first, please. And then everybody around the room reads aloud the one sentence of the problem that they think everybody is trying to solve. After that, then we laugh a little bit and we say, things like, "Are you crazy? That's not what we're trying to solve right now." And then we have to agree. And this is sort of like the silly cartoon that you can get with the operating theater, and everybody says it's the left leg, right? It's the left leg that we have to amputate, and the doctor's looking at the patient, pointing to the left leg, and this is why in when somebody's getting operated, you'd actually use permanent markers and write this on the right. They definitely mark the leg that has to be operated on. So that's like it's a really simple tip, but it's something that I use a lot. So what's the problem that we're trying to solve? And we only ever solve one problem at a time. So when we're being drilled as Kepner Tregoe instructors, it's always this, make sure the teams are only trying to solve one problem at a time. And you can do that by, if it's life or death, or if it's costing a lot of money, or if it's the biggest problem business-wise, but only solve one problem at a time and make sure that everybody's trying to solve this problem, which means that usually we send managers or so-called department leaders out of the room because they're not there to solve the problem. So we make sure that everybody in the room is there to solve the problem and the same problem. And then we write that problem on a flip over chart or on a board. This is the problem that we're trying to solve. So that's number one. Number two is create good questions. So a lot of workshops that I do is called questioning skills. And it actually comes a lot from my mix in this as well as my trauma as a 10-year-old kid, where I couldn't ask anybody any questions. I could only talk about football and that was it. And it's this, like, how to ask questions, what type of questions to ask, and how to ask good questions. Number three is shift left with the questions. So not just that you should have problem management teams with good questions, not only incident management, not only first line, but let's do an FAQ with questions for the users. And then the project that we did in Singapore was we actually moved the questions, the good questions, we moved them out onto the ships. So that technical boxes that might go wrong on a ship, let's move the questions that support are going to ask, which is a really, really good way of doing support and doing incident and problem management. So we got a workshop with first, second, third line support, and we found the best questions that once this box goes wrong out on the ship, what questions does support have to know? So we find the answers, we find the questions, and then we simplify the questions and put stickers on the box. And we did this with the shop in Norway as well, with a lot of offices around Norway, where we actually put the questions. So I like this idea that if I'm watching TV and my internet box gets broken, I'd like to go to my internet box on the wall and see a question list there, that once you get through to support, these are the questions that they're going to ask. Have the answers ready. And if you don't have the answers, that's totally okay. But it's nice. These are the questions that they're definitely going to ask. So that's like it's saving time, it's saving energy, it's saving frustration. So that's what I mean with shift left with the questions. So number four, practice the method. This is a method, and with any method, you get better at using a method the more that you use it. And if you're going to wait until a crisis, like it's 3 o'clock in the morning in Norway, and somebody calls me and said, "Brendan, we've got one of those crises now. Can you help us with Kepner Tregoe?" And it's like, we haven't trained in Kepner Tregoe. We haven't practiced this. So it's going to be crazy. So don't wait until the crisis until you practice it. And the fun thing is that under lockdown, everybody is sitting at home. So it's very difficult to get people into the same room. So how can we practice a method like Kepner Tregoe over the phone and with different lags of timing and communication over the phone? So it definitely takes practice. And 5, this idea of boost skills sharing. And what I mean by that is the super skills matrix right below it. So you find the 25 most critical applications or systems that you have in your organization, and you get, this is like a spreadsheet, and you get everybody working. And you ask them, what can you do, their levels of skill, where 1 is, I've heard about the system, but haven't really used it. Number 2, I've used it. Number 3, I'm one of those really good on the system. Number 4, I'm a super user on the system. Number 5, I could have made the system myself. And what do you like? Where 1 is you definitely don't like it, and 5 is you love working in the system. And then what you would like to learn more about. So this is this super skills matrix that definitely helps us get problem management groups together and problem management teams and task force teams. So you definitely know who to call in the middle of the night because we have our spreadsheet. And we also have this, how can we spread learning internally? So definitely have some people, you can hang a big L around their neck, which is, I'm only here to learn. I don't know anything about the system, but I'm here to learn. So I'm not going to come with any input, but I'd like to listen in on how the problem is solved. So that's basically what I'm going to share with you guys today. And that's all of these is what I sort of used Kepner Tregoe in real life to do. So Kepner Tregoe has 4 parts, 4 process areas, and this is basically, they're all color coded. So anybody that works with Kepner Tregoe uses these same colors. We all recognize them. We all sort of know these diagrams. If you can imagine that there's a fire burning in the city where you live, and the fire brigade turn up, the police turn up, the ambulance turn up, one of the first questions before they run into the building, one of the first questions they ask is, what's going on here? So what's going on? And then they have to ask that to the right people, what's going on? And based on that, that's what Kepner Tregoe does. So what's going on is always the decision to find out, what do we have to do? Now, if we're going to use the problem analysis, that's when we go into the past. That's looking, why did that happen? What went wrong yesterday? What went wrong this morning? What went wrong last week? Then we do the red part, which is called problem analysis. Now that overlaps with what ITIL calls problem management. So ITIL has got incident and problem management, and Kepner Tregoe's problem analysis overlaps both of those. So it's a little bit of incident and it's quite a bit of problem management, but Kepner Tregoe calls it problem analysis. Number 2, what's going on? We need to make a decision. What should we do? Before we make a decision, let's get all of the information in before we make a decision. And that's used a lot in change management, but I can't be covering that today because this is a 1-hour webinar. So I'm going to mostly be looking at the problem analysis part. But the decision analysis is basically a team decision, which analyzes alternatives and risks. And the yellow part could be called risk management. So it's called problem analysis. Why did it go wrong? But it hasn't gone wrong yet. It might go wrong. So in layman's terms, we usually just call that risk management. So it's potentially what might go wrong. And what are we going to do about that? And I can recommend, like, some of these Kepner Tregoe workshops and courses are unbelievable. The Kepner Tregoe potential problem analysis is the simplest risk management method that I've ever seen. It's so simple that people actually use it in projects. That's how simple it is. People use it. So in most projects, I've seen people do a lot of risk management at the start, and then it just seems to be less and less throughout the project. And the potential problem analysis is just beautiful in its simplicity. And I think that's a way to describe Kepner Tregoe, that it's so simple that whenever people see what Kepner Tregoe is, everybody thinks like, I could have made this, but the whole thing is that you didn't. And somebody called Kepner and Tregoe did, and they made a fortune on it. Definitely you could have, because it's so simple and it doesn't bring in any really new terms, but you didn't do it. So this is the first part, questioning skills. So I hold workshops. I've got another order this morning to hold 3 more questioning skills workshops. Questioning skills for me is almost like men driving cars. Everybody thinks they're way above average, but there's definitely a lot of people out there that aren't good at driving. And it's sort of like questioning skills. People think like, why do I need questioning skills? I've been asking questions since I could speak when I was 3 years old. I don't need to practice questioning skills, but in most cases we do. So there's lots of nice exercises. There's black mysteries that we call them, and we differentiate and we play the difference between asking closed questions and open questions, and it's so much fun. And 1-to-1, this is fine. And then you add in time, and you add in risks, and you add in things that can go wrong. You add in different interpretations of the information, and it just gets really funny. We're not good at asking questions. So Kepner Tregoe, I don't know if anybody of you been on a Kepner Tregoe workshop, but there's also a very fun case called Why Did the Chicken Cross the Road? And it's a very funny face where there's a farmer, there's the farmer's son, the farmer's wife, the local lorry driver, the person who sold this chicken at the local fair, and everybody's got this really important information. Well, it's not that important, but we have to ask good questions to find out what is important. So it's this differentiating between open questions and closed questions. Open questions and closed questions. Here's the rule, whenever we have a customer in front of us, we have to ask open questions first. We ask open questions to gather information. open questions to gather information. That is so, so important. Anybody that's seen any detective series on TV, we hear them. This is like Detective Columbo and all of these super amazing detectives that have been on TV. They were all great at asking open questions. And open questions begin with what, where, who, why, which. All of those are open questions. And then after that, what we do is we ask closed questions. So what we do is we practice this on questioning skills workshops, and somebody has been given a problem, an incident or a problem, and other people have to find out the best information from that. So, this closed question, we get people to drill this closed question. It's really simple, and it's like this. So let me understood if I've understood correctly. Is the problem, and then you read back the problem of the information. Did I understand you correctly? And the answer you get back is, no, you didn't understand me correctly. Great, back to open question, beginning with W. What did I not understand? And that's getting back to that open question. And the user will tell you again what you didn't understand. And then you do exactly the same again. Great, let me try again. Did I understand you correctly that the problem that I'm trying to understand is this? And you play it back. And finally, you'll get, yes, that's exactly the problem. And that takes a lot of practice. When we do this in service desk, we hear first line people saying, so is it this? That's a closed question. Did this happen? That's a closed question. Are these included? That's a closed question. And we end up with, that's not the problem that the user actually has. So we differentiate between a lot on open questions and closed questions. And if any of you want, I've got like a list of 100 exercises, they're really fun to use with kids in the car or at the dinner table, where you say something to the kids and they have to ask you with closed questions, and they're dying to ask open questions. Like, can we ask open questions? I said, no, you only have to ask closed. Now here's why closed questions, we have to be really careful, because to ask a closed question on something, you have to have some experience. That's really important, understanding that, which means that you know the possible answer. So if you say, was the car red? That means that you can only ask that question because you know that a car could be red. So the answer you get back is either yes or no. So one of the problems with project managers not being aware of the questions that they use is that if you have 20 years of asking questions to customers, you're going to fall into the trap of asking closed questions. And this is when I observe project managers doing this, and I ask them afterwards, how do you think it went? I say, it went great. I was great at asking open questions. I say, well, let's listen to the recording that we recorded. And they listen to themselves asking closed and closed and closed questions. So it's a very simple thing, and it's very easy to practice. So everybody in the webinar here, when you go home today, or if you're at home in your office, then you go to your partner, you go to your wife, you go to your husband, you go to your neighbor, and you ask an open question. You say, how was your day so far? And your neighbor will say, good. And then you say, open question, open question, open question. What was good about it? And then they'll say, I met lots of nice people. And then you'll say, did you meet lots of nice people? And they'll say, yes. And then you'll get this awkward silence that happens, and it's really funny. And when you go just a little bit backwards from a yes or a no, you realize that, oh, somebody just asked a closed question. That can be very dangerous when we're solving problems. So the whole idea of questioning skills is really nice workshops that I highly recommend to do. And the way we set them up is that people are, this isn't difficult, but people should listen to each other on service desks, on incident management and problem management and task forces. Listen to each other. What type of questions are we asking? You don't need anybody external to do this, but it's really a nice exercise to do.
Brendan, there's a great question from Tim Allen, which is about, let me read out the question and then hopefully you can provide an answer. The difficulty I've seen is that in some corporate cultures, everybody is rewarded for knowing, and it means that nobody will admit that they do not know something. The idea of asking questions that you do not already know the answer to is inhibited because not knowing is seen as a weakness. Is there a way to overcome this culture?
That's a nice question. Whenever we train this in Kepner Tregoe, what we have to do is we practice on stating if something is 100% fact or if it's not 100% fact. That's something that we actually train a lot on, and On anything that we're definitely not 100% sure that it's fact, then we just put NMD beside it, need more data. And it's so I've never seen this as a big problem. I've tested these a lot with workshops between Scandinavia and India and Scandinavia and Singapore. And as long I've always just treated it as this is what we do. If we're not sure, we just put need more data. So I don't know if that's like a great answer, but it's something that I've never really thought of as a big problem. To make it safe, I think is probably the easy way of doing this.
Thanks for that. Another question that just come in from Patrick, from Paul, I beg your pardon. Is the trick to asking open questions to disregard the fact that you may know something about the topic and asking it in a way that you can obtain other people's views?
Yeah, 100%. That's a really nice way of putting it. 100%. And the difficulty about this is that if a customer says to us that they want something, then we don't ask any more questions, because we've done that before. We've done that 20 times before. So we get a bit lazy. It's called experience. We get a bit lazy. And if you put a totally new project manager in a room with a customer, they'll ask much better questions because they don't know. They don't know. So we have to be really good about who we put in situations with experience. Experience can be a little bit dodgy, but you're going to need experience to solve the problems. So it's really nice to start talking about these things, and really nice to listen to your own recording about how you do requirement specification and projects and incident management and problem management. It's really nice to hear a recording of how you ask questions. And I do this with kids. I actually help kids do this a lot, and teenagers, how to help teenagers open up the world, be better at asking open questions. The typical teenagers are very shy, and they're only, if you listen to teenagers, anybody here that's got teenagers, you'll hear them in small talk asking closed questions. Lots of closed questions. And once they understand this power of asking open questions, then they'll never be stuck in life. It's such an amazing skill to give to kids and teenagers. It's just an unbelievable, simple skill. And the way I do this is actually you have to just role play. That's like a lot of what we do. You just have to role play. And I say to people, so find out where I went on holiday last year. And people say, okay, where did you go on? Marianne is here, one of these, and she knows this. Marianne, you can write in the chat that this is an amazing, silly exercise to do. So if I have a group of 10 people in support and I ask them, find out where I went on holiday last year, and maybe somebody will come up with a question like, Brendan, where did you go on holiday last year? And I'll say, I went to London. And then they'll say, okay, there we go. We found out. And finally, after a little while, somebody will think, oh, wait, maybe he went somewhere else. Did you go anywhere else? Yes, I did. I was like, okay, so where did you go? And I'd say, I went to France. And then they go, okay, thanks. I say, are you happy now? Is that all? And we have to be really good. Is there more information to ask? Or is there more information to get? And what's the best questions to ask this? So, and if we only have the customer on the telephone, once, we have to be really good at making sure that the customer doesn't come back later and say, well, you didn't ask that question. So we have to be really good at not getting it. So those are really good questions. Fire away with any questions that you have in the chat. It's really good. Marianne wrote, it was incredible. Everyone settled with the first question. Yeah, it's just it's really fun when people get this aha experience through these question exercise, these question workshops. Colin, love your approach, Brandon. Would it be possible to provide a list of good open questions? Yep, you're going to get a load of them right now. Inside the next 5 minutes, you're going to get a lot of good questions to ask. Yeah, so this poster here, with the potentially endless open questions. When do you know when to stop? That's a good question. You'll get that as well. This poster here is a classic poster for Kepner Tregoe, and the red one is the steps of problem analysis. These are the steps. So number one, we need to go back and find the cause, and we're going to describe the problem, identify possible causes, evaluate the possible causes, and then find the true cause. And then what we do in make sure it doesn't happen again is really ITIL's incident management. So possibly some of these are mostly incident management, overlapping with problem management, but then we definitely do problem management. How can we stop this from happening again? Which in ITIL is sort of like possibly not given enough attention. I don't know if that's true, but it could be said that because we're IT people, that we like fixing things. So maybe we definitely don't want it to fixed permanently because we like fixing things. We get cred for fixing things. So that's also a nice part of Kepner Tregoe. Okay, so just let me, before we get to these questions, just let me show you this diagram here. This is sort of and it's a nice diagram to sort of explain. Somebody's drawing on my screen here. That's fun. I don't know how to get rid of it, but it doesn't matter. Some red lines here, but that doesn't matter. This is a nice diagram to sort of explain incident. It's like a visualization of an incident. So on the left, we have performance. At the bottom, we have time. And at some form along the way, we have this drop in performance. And that's until we restore normal service. This is called the incident in typical service desk or operations. So the incident happens at some point, and it's called an unplanned interruption. Users aren't happy, we're losing money, and in worst case, this could be life or death situation. That time is really going. And so incident management has to do a job. Now, Kepner Tregoe has a very specific definition of problem. So ITIL has one definition, but ITIL's definition of Kepner Tregoe's definition of a problem is answering yes to 3 questions, which means that if you answer yes to 3 questions, you have a problem. If you don't answer yes to 3 questions, you don't have a problem. You've got something else, but you don't have a problem in Kepner Tregoe. So the first one is, do we have a deviation? So network is down. Do we have a deviation? Yes. Should the network be up? Yes, it should. It's down. Therefore, we have a deviation. Printer does not print. Do we have a deviation? Yes, the printer should be printing. It's not printing. Do we have a deviation? Yes, we do. Is the cause unknown? No, the cause is not known. I know why. It's not plugged in. There's no power. Okay, so we don't need to do problem analysis in Kepner Tregoe. So this is the cause unknown? Yes, the cause is unknown. I don't know the cause. Then then we have 2 yeses. And the third one is so beautiful. It's like, do you really need to know the cause to do something effective ahead? And sometimes the answer is, no, we don't. We just reboot that server once every 3 months and it's fine. Okay, great. That's fine then. Then we don't need to use our time and money and energy to go back and find the cause. So this is, I cycle on my bicycle and I get a flat tire, a puncture on my bicycle. Do we have a deviation? Yes, I do. Is the cause unknown? Right now, the cause is unknown. Yep. Do I need to know the cause? No, I don't. I just fix the puncture. So I don't need to do problem analysis. Okay, I cycle 10 minutes more. I get another puncture. Do you have a deviation? Yes. Is the cause unknown? Yes. Do I need to know the cause? This could be like a coincidence. So do I really need to know the cause? No, I just fix it. Could happen 2 times in one day. Cycle another 10 minutes, another puncture. Do you have a deviation? Yes. Cause known? Yes. Do I need to know the cause? Yeah. At some time, I'm really going to have to figure out what is the cause. And this is then we have what we call in Kepner Tregoe problem analysis. This is the whole of problem analysis summed up in 2 cards, but I can't go through everything here, just take too long. But I will give you a really nice tip that Kepner Tregoe has this way of writing a problem, which is what is wrong with what. You write 1 object and 1 deviation. Printer A is not printing. That's it. So it's always what you see, hear, or smell, or whatever that tells you there's a deviation. So you can never have a broken. Printer is broken. Broken would never be a good deviation. How do you know that it's broken? Well, there's smoke coming from the printer. Server is not starting. Well, how do you know it's not starting? No lights, no power. Okay, so there's always something that we can write in. And that's why I love Kepner Tregoe's way of writing problems much more than, for example, a typical ITIL, which usually people bring in how it affects business outcomes. Is usually what people bring in, and I think that's a really nice way of defining a problem: 1 object and 1 deviation. Brendan is not motivated. He should be motivated. It's not motivated. 1 person, Brendan, what's the deviation? He's not motivated. So it's always this really simple way. So the exercise I told you at the start of this, make sure that everybody can write down what problem are we trying to solve right now. People give me 1 object and give me the deviation to that object. What's wrong with what? Give me that. And try your best to write that down in 1 sentence. No matter how complicated or complex it is, write that down in 1 sentence. and then you go around the room, and then we have to some way agree what is the problem. Now, somebody wrote there in the chat that you do this, you can use this 5 why approach to get to the right object deviation, which is the printer doesn't boot. Or why does the printer doesn't boot? Because there's no power. Why is there no power? I don't know. So no power to server would be the object deviation. So once you keep asking why until somebody says, we don't know. And that's the level that you should solve your problems on. That's sort of like another nice tip that I didn't include earlier. What level do you solve problems? You keep asking why until you get to, I don't know. And that's where Kepner Tregoe jumps in. All right, get ready for this. Somebody asked a question about these questions, these open questions. Here's about 24 open questions on this card. They all start with what or where or when or how or what, so there's about 24 of them. So if you look at the top left, you'll see is, and if you look at the top right, you'll see is not. Now this is if I go to the doctor and I say, doctor, object, my head, deviation, really painful. The doctor would say, okay, Brendan, how's your neck? And I'd look at my doctor and say, what, did you hear me? I said, my head is sore. And he said, oh, Brendan, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to define the problem. I'm trying to close down. It could be your neck, right? Yeah, it could be my neck, but today it's not my neck. He says, great. Then what did the doctor just do? The doctor found out where the pain is not. That's really like a key to understanding problem solving. The better we find out what the problem is not, the easier it is to solve. Some people get that straight away. Some people can argue with me for like half an hour or an hour on that until I finally win that argument. But the more is nots we get. This is like the typical detective murder mystery on TV. The more we stroke off the wife, the gardener, the neighbor, the closer we're getting to who actually killed the person, right? So we have to find all of these is nots. Who could have done the murder, but it wasn't obviously them. So now here's a silly example of this. I go to my doctor and I say, doctor, I've got a object deviation. Head is very painful. Shouldn't be painful. So the deviation is really sore. And the doctor says, oh, what about your left toe on your little toe on your left foot? And I say, what? And he says, I've been on a Kepner Tregoe course. I've heard that we should define the problem. And I say, yeah, but my little toe, it's really far away, you know. It's really far away. Now let's take an IT example of that. Printer in office is not working. What could it not be? What about the coffee machine down in the first floor? Is that working? Now that would be too far away, but it could be printer in office is not working. Okay, does the light switch turn on the lights in the room? Do we have power into the office? That would be obviously closer. Does the scanner on the printer work? That would be very close. See where we're getting? That would be extremely close. So the closer we get to what it is not, the more easier it's going to be to solve. After we ask these questions, what we're going to end up with is something like, before we solve a jigsaw puzzle, everybody in the whole world, everybody says, do we have the cover of the jigsaw box? All right? We have the cover of the jigsaw box, this puzzle. Do we have that? This is what these questions get us. These questions get us the full cover of the jigsaw box. Now we're looking at factual information. And even if it's not factual, it's factual because it says beside it, need more data. So the question earlier, what happens if we don't know? That's totally fine. It's actually, we have to get in that we're not 100% sure of the answer. That's fact. That has to be factual. Because if the first shift stops at 5 o'clock and the next shift comes on, if we pass on wrong information to them as factual, that could actually cause more problems. That's really important.
Brendan, I think while people are digesting that, which is, I think it was really, really interesting, it would be a good time to do what we normally do on Mentoring Professionals, which is to get everyone to turn on their cameras and give a wave, so we can use that as a snapshot. So please, all of you, turn on your cameras, and when I say so, just give a nice big wave. So hold on, let's get a few more people turning on. Great. Do that. Okay.
Smile.
I could do it on mine as well, couldn't I? Right, now give up a nice wave, guys. Thank you. Fantastic. It's great to see so many of you back again as well. Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, you can carry on now, Brendan.
Yeah. So now here's these questions in Kepner Tregoe you can't ask on the telephone to customers. That does not work. At least in Norway, that does not work. If you have a customer on the phone, you cannot say to the customer, I have some questions on a card here. And the first question is, what specific object has the deviation? Now, you might get past that. They might say, my TV is not working. My next question on the right-hand side here is, dear sir, what similar objects could reasonably have the deviation but do not? And somewhere along here, they're definitely going to hang up the phone. They're going to scare them with the language. So one thing that we have to always do is take these questions and make them to real-life questions. Some typical, this is like a simple exercise we do. How can we find out, how can we ask these questions in a real simple manner? So along the left are the 4 areas of Kepner Tregoe. If any of you are using like problem management tools, you might see what, where, when, extent. There on the left side, what, where, when, extent, what's the problem, where is the problem, when is the problem, what's the size, extent, trend, what's the size of the problem, and there is not, what is not the problem, but could have been, where is the problem, not, but could have been, when is the problem, not, but could have been, what could have been the size of the problems, but not today. So the what, it's not, it's the printer, it's not the scanner. Where is it? It's in the office on the 2nd floor, but the neighboring office, it works fine there. When is it? Well, it definitely, it went down at 4 o'clock, but it was working before 4 o'clock because at 3:30, I definitely printed something. That's really good information to have to solve a problem. Like, when do we definitely know it was working? It was working Friday. It's very strange. I can't log in, but the person beside me can log in. That's great information. What a lot of first-line service desks do, they get that information and they totally ignore it. It's very strange because the person beside me can log in. Yes, but we're not talking about the person beside you. I'm trying to help you with your, and we can't solve it, and we escalate it. And now it's like we should have documented that information. And this extent is all about numbers. So what we do in real life is we take those questions and we have to get them sort of, and this is roughly the questions that I put on the ships in Singapore, on these technical boxes. So what we did was that we looked at things that went wrong the last couple of years, the last 3 years, and we said, if those have gone wrong the last 3 years, they're probably going to go wrong again. That's basically what we're saying. So, and that we say is, what's the most specific thing? And printers obviously not enough. Okay, so there's a little sticker on the printer. Read me the name of that sticker, please. Because if I'm going to escalate this to 2nd line, I need that name. And what is it not, but could have been? So we gather as much of this information as possible. And this is also, it's based on what, which users have the problem. Geographically, if we're doing service over different areas, then we do either which country, which department, which floor in the building, which office are you sitting in. So geographically as much as possible. And it says question to the void, question to, there's no more information to get. That's a really nice term used in Kepner Tregoe. Keep questioning to the void. Question to the neighbor till the customer says, oh, there's no more information to give you. Great. Anybody that's been interviewed by the police, they definitely know that they're trained. Police are trained in questioning skills, and they're always trained to question to the void. And at what time did you first notice it? But be very careful about it, because it's noticed. That doesn't mean that it was working just before that. So we're definitely going to mark that with need more data. The customer said that they couldn't print at 4. So we have to need more data, be very careful. It might have been down before that, but we don't know. That's fact. That's a fact. What's the pattern here? Is this continuous that the server is down? Is it random? Is it periodically? If something's periodically, it's extremely fun problem solving. I tell you that, because then it's going to be, and will you see? In 5 minutes, it's going to go down again. Will you see? There's my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There you go. It's not available. The router has gone down again, just as planned. What did I tell you? What's going on? If we get periodic problems, there's a real fun to solve. And these all helps us. We're getting logs out of servers. We're getting logs out of systems. And this is going to help us do all of this. So these are typical questions that you can really shift left, put on stickers. You can even do them simpler than this. I have some that are in Norwegian that we've used with Kommune here in Norway. And then we know what names to expect on the different machines. So we create stickers and we put them out. And if it's a user can't log in, we definitely know what the username should start with. So give me the specific username that can't log in. Give me specific usernames of the neighbor beside you that can log in. That's critical information. Now this, if we imagine that first line can ask these questions and we get the answers, and then we can send that to second line or third line support. That's a beautiful way of doing support. What do we do? Where do we start in real life? We go to third line or go to second line and first line and get them together in a workshop and say, when this goes wrong, second line, third line experts, what information do you need to solve the problem? And those are the questions that we have to ask. That's like always the way you got to do it. You got to do it that way. And then after that, then we say to second line, if you're not allowed to send the ticket back to first line because they're missing information, tell them exactly the information that you need. Now, it can be that the customer doesn't have the information. That can be. But then we write that in the ticket. We ask the question. So we get rid of that when we call the customer again. But I already told you guys this. And then you apologize. I'm really sorry, but we're not that good at documenting. So we have to be like, really, we do this a workshop. You set off a 3-hour workshop with first, second, third line. And you say, what's the information that we need to solve the problem? And then you ask the questions, and then you mix them with these questions, and that's what you ask the customers. Those are the stickers that you make, and that's how you can improve. Like if any of you know Little's Law, it's like the only real measurement that you need in incident the problem. And then you can definitely see the reduction in Little Law, because we're making the customers better, we're making first line better. The whole escalation, we aim for 0 of ping pong back and forward of tickets. So it's like any ping pong back and forward is just like, it's just ridiculous. So that is basically these tips. I go back to these tips here. Hope this was an okay intro for you guys on this. Here's the tips that I told you at the start. What's the problem you're trying to solve? Make sure everybody knows exactly the problem you're trying to solve. Write it down, get it on the flip over, get it on the board, get it big, get it very, very visible. Create good questions, get first, second, third line together and create good questions based on the information that you need. And then move those questions out further towards the customer. And if you can put stickers, if you can put, once you're going to call the customer, here's the questions that first line or support, here's the questions they're going to ask.
Brendan.
Yes.
Hi there. While you're just on that point, number 3, can you explain the shift left with questions again in a little bit more detail?
Yeah, so it's basically moving them from third line to shifting them towards it's like this agile term, shift left. I don't know if I should have put it there because I have to explain it. So, but it's sort of like moving things more towards a self-service portal of FAQ would be a really good example of shifting left. So shifting out of IT, moving towards the customer. And then what we do is then we move it exactly out towards the technical things that can go wrong. Now, here's a question none of you have asked so far, and that is, how can we ask all of these questions if we have the customer on the phone? It can be towards automation with the typical FAQ. That's true, Paul. So I have this like shift left with a sort of like the same concept. You just move it out. So instead of you having to ask all the questions, the customer knows the questions. So if Liverpool is on the TV and something's wrong with my TV box, I call the customer and say, here's the answer to all the questions that you should know to fix my problem as fast as possible. Are you ready? And they go, okay, let's go. And I say, that's good, because I just had this workshop you guys last week. Let's go. Here's the answers. So I give them the answers before they ask any questions. How can you get away with asking all of these questions to the customer? That's like a typical question I usually get. And one of the actual sentence we use in real life is the following. I have a set of questions that if I ask them and I get the answer from you, I'm pretty sure that we can do the support ticket faster. Do you want to play the game or not? And usually if we set it up that way, the customer says, okay, let's go. So that's how we do it. I've got a set of 12 questions that I have to get through these questions. And if I can get through these questions, I can pretty much guarantee a faster service. Do you want to go through the questions? Yeah, let's go. That's the way that we launched those questions. And number 4, practice the method. It's a method. It's a simple method just based on questions, but you have to practice. How do we do those questions in task forces when we have one person from Norway, one person from India, one person from Singapore in the middle of the night? How do you do that? If everybody has the same set of questions, online in the task force, then you know which questions are coming. And if you're sitting with information that you know when something happened, you know that when is question when 2. That's question 7 on the list. You know your time's going to come. So you know that the person that leads this is going to go through what, it's going to go through where, it's going to go through when. So people know what questions are going to come, and that is really, really nice way of doing it. So whenever I lead this, it's like, okay, Thomas, do you have any more information to what 1? Yes or no? No. Okay, be quiet. Ole, do you have any information for what 2? Yes or no? Yes. What is the information that you have? Do you have any more information? No. Okay, be quiet. Then we move on to question where 1. So we go back to let's choose some to Tim. Tim, do you have any information on when 1? Yes or no? No, I have no information. Great, move along, please. Next one. That's how it's really brutal when we do this. So we need a leader that's trained in this method, and just like really, we treat people like really, yes, no, okay, no, be quiet, don't interrupt. That's the way we run through this method. I saw a question here in the chat. Is there also a disadvantage for using this method? If you think that the method is going to solve your problem, you've just created another problem. So the method doesn't solve problems, but it gives you the lid on the jigsaw. It definitely gives you the full cover on the jigsaw. Another is that people are going to think that I don't like this. I like to do it my own way. So that's not like a disadvantage of the method. Another would be that for very simple problems, this would be overkill. This is definitely overkill for really simple problems, but usually what sometimes happens is that after you thought something was a simple problem, you find out 15, 22 days later, oh, this wasn't simple at all. This was we should have started documenting this stuff from the start. Can somebody get the customer on the phone again, please? You're going to irritate customers. Other question, getting the right info is currently more difficult with the amount of remote workers. Yep. For instance, you don't have the option of the caller turning to a neighbor to see if they're having the same problem. How should this be tackled? That's a really good question. It definitely makes it more difficult. And I'd say that would be like a really nice role play to do when things are calm and things are working. That would be a nice way to a nice situation that you could plan. Here's the problem that we have. How would we go about solving this? I think that would be nice. That's sort of like choose something that would be difficult. I would think shift left that we educate clients on how to report an issue. Yep. They know upfront that any issue for application X needs to be particular log file before we can. Yep, that'd be great. We'll have a recording of the session on YouTube. We'll post links on Slack and LinkedIn. How different is Kepner Tregoe than Kepner Fury methods? All right. So Kepner Fury is much more, as far as I know, it's much more IT. I almost became a Kepner Fury instructor, but I didn't. But it has its own take on this. So I'd say if without being, I don't know, I'd say it as careful as I can, that the original hardcore is Kepner Tregoe, and then there's like a section, there's something that went off to the side called Kepner Fury, and the reason I've no idea, and if it's any better or I have no idea. I sort of like I understand the full Kepner Tregoe, and then I've used that my own ways of using that. So I hope that was an okay answer to that. There is a really nice book called Solve It or Solve IT, Solve It, Solve IT, and that's also linked up to Kepner Fury method as well. But I love simplicity. I really love simplicity. When we're doing in-service desk and incident and problem, things have to be simple. One of the most simple things you can start doing is just getting people to be really aware. Are we trying to solve the same problem, which is one object and one deviation? And you'll find out that straight away from there that you're not. Come with more questions in the chat, please. People, come on.
So, Brendan, just while we're waiting for other people to ask questions, this is just one method of problem solving. There are many other methods for problem solving, but they're all basically around asking questions, isn't it? So I guess a key element that people need to get their heads around is that they need to get better at asking questions. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, and it's something that I guess that most people here think that they don't need to. It's like, I don't mean them, but I definitely mean you. But it's one of those areas that that when we role play it, we see that we're not that good at it. So I mean, I train my 8-year-old on this, like, and I've had this in another. I don't know if any of you guys have been in another of any of my sessions here, but I call this like being more interested. And the way to be more interested is to ask more open questions. And one of the best skills that we can give kids is to teach them open questions. One of the best gimmicks that we can give teenagers, like teenagers are impressive when they can talk to adults. I think that's an impressive skill. Of teenagers who can talk to adults is an impressive skill. And you'll see some teenagers that are great at talking to adults, and listen to the way they talk, and you'll hear that they're asking open questions. If a teenager gets a question, what are your plans for the summer? And then they say, oh, we're going to Sweden. What are your plans? They'll ask a question back. And you think like, wow, that was impressive. They've sort of understood this. And you'll also hear something similar from people that are really good in first line service desk and project manager and even salespeople. I mean, I drill these question skills with salespeople as well. Like, are we good at asking questions? And what type of questions do we ask? So I think question skills is at the core of, I definitely agree, of most problem management or problem solving methods, definitely. But just I've always loved Kepner Tregoe for its simplicity and lack of difficult language. I love the simple language around Kepner Tregoe. Everybody sort of like just understands it. My experience says if the method is intuitive and simple, it is much easier to convince people to use it. Yeah, but I think once you get into the field of trying to convince people, then I just that's it. Then I'm not there anymore. So it's like this shouldn't be like trying to convince people. People should see like I think my service desk might have use for this, and then it's like so it gets back to this idea of we should never sell, but we can definitely buy. So no selling.
Yeah. So I think we're pretty much at the end because there's no further questions. I'm happy to open it up to the audience. If any of you want to actually ask the question yourselves directly, please do so now.
Yeah, I've got a question there. Have you known project managers use KT method for risk analysis? Yep, definitely. We use that. There's a large company in Scandinavia that I've used that with. We've taken that in projects. And we use it, and we do, and it's like a very simple method that we use maybe every other week. Then we do a 45-minute workshop on this very simple risk management. It's called potential problem analysis. It's the yellow part, and it's just so simple that people understand it instead of having to go on a risk management course. The author of Solve IT book. That's I'd be guessing. I'm not sure if it's written by Kepner Tregoe. But I'd be guessing there, but you can check it out. It's like this orange and yellow cover, and just like big letters on the front of Solve IT. It's really good, really good book. Wow, that was a long question. Questioning to the void seems to assume that the questioner knows the questions that would exhaust the investigation. But sometimes answers can be missed just because the questioner does not know the question to ask. How do you know when a genuine void has been reached? You don't. There is no more relevant information to find. Yep. Rather than your questions are insufficient for the. Yeah, that's a nice one. So I think the short answer is no, you don't. But it's like you can definitely ask more. Like you can definitely say, so like ask the open question of what other information do you have? This is an open question. What other information do you have that you think might be important for solving this incident or solving this problem? So you can ask like what else, what other type questions. But it's a good question from Jonah. Hope that was okay of an answer. Irfan, how does one convince an organization to adopt Kepner Tregoe? I wouldn't. As a framework rather than their existing method, I wouldn't. And it's always like Kepner Tregoe, I think, has always been like this idea of if what you're using is working okay, if it's working fine, keep using it. So Kepner Tregoe has never really taken this like this big jump out to say, look at us, we're amazing. But a lot of organizations have taken it on board. So I think that one way of using Kepner Tregoe, if I was the boss, I definitely drill. This is like the test. So I only sort of deliver workshops that I can go good for. And if I was the boss of a service operations or services team, I'd drill them on question skills, definitely. And I'd have a set of questions for things that can go wrong, and I'd have a competence skills matrix of dynamic problem solving groups that I definitely do. So the beauty of this method is that the simplicity of this method allows it to be used quickly when any complex issues occur. Yep, that's a nice way to put it. A lot of great questions here, Dev.
Yes, they are great, and the interaction has been brilliant. I'd just like to remind everyone who's still on that you can find our information on LinkedIn, and you can also join us on Slack, join Mentoring Professionals on Slack, and you then have access to about 28, 29 other mentors that you can directly engage with, as well as Brendan and myself. So if you are interested, then certainly do look at joining our group. We also have the next fortnight full of sessions on various topics. So have a look and book yourselves on there. And if you have any more questions for Brendan, please don't hesitate to send them in, and we'll get Brendan to answer them. Brendan, I think there's a good question to sort of end on from Paul, which is, how do you avoid question fatigue?
Yeah, who has the fatigue here? Is it the questioner or the person being questioned? Paul, can you answer that? Question fatigue.
You can unmute yourself, Paul, if you want to have a chat with Brendan.
If this is if he's looking for dating advice, because we're not that far away from dating advice when we go through like asking questions. The person answering. So I think the thing is that it's one way that I'm a big believer in disclaimers. So you have to say that I'm going to have to ask 12 questions, but once I ask those questions, I'm pretty sure that I'd be able to help you much better and much faster. So if you say it from the start, it's like asking somebody, would you like to go for a run in the forest, but don't tell them how far you're going to run. They're going to get fatigued. But if you say, I'd like to go for a run, but it's only going to be for 30 minutes, that's it. So that's the way I do it. We sort of have to come with disclaimers before you ask a lot of questions, because if you don't, you might experience people saying, and I've heard this a lot, what is this, some sort of interrogation? So that's what you get back. But if you come with that disclaimer first, I have to ask a lot of questions. You might feel like this is an interrogation, but if I get to ask those questions, then I'm pretty sure that you get the answer or we'll be able to fix this much faster. Another thing, Dev, I can export, because this is on Miro, I can export this and we can make this available. We do that on the LinkedIn group.
Yeah, we can do that. So we will have a recording of this session, and what we'll include in the recording is also a couple of links to some of the things that you mentioned. For example, Brendan, you mentioned the open questions, a list of open questions. So we can have a link to that, as well as to this presentation itself. Good. Okay, great. Thank you all once again.
Thanks, everybody.
Good luck. Bye-bye.